I just wanted to add something that I forgot. When I was saying the stories, I was planning to say another story, a very powerful one. And I want to just end off and just say one more story that I missed, a very powerful one. A true story that was said over by the person himself. He said the story was that he was benching during Sukkot time, and he was an older man. And somebody had come to him and had asked him, he says, how come you bench so beautifully? All the neighbors, when you're benching in Sukkot, it's just amazing how you bench. And he told this amazing, amazing story that happened when he was younger. And that was why people all around him, when he was older, they got chizik. And this is the story he said over. He said when he was a bacher in yeshiva, he was learning, there was a good yeshiva he was learning in Europe. And what happened was, one day, Rav Meir Shapiro, the one who made the Daf Yomi, he came into the yeshiva to test the boys. And he used to go around, he was a very famous Rosh Yeshiva at that time. People, they came to yeshivas to check. And after he was there, he was very impressed. He said, boys, I want to give you a present. I want to give you something. And everybody like, well, what's the present? I want to tell you something that if you do it, it's amazing. He says, he brought this Be'er Hetev from the Sefer Chinuch. Anybody that benches with kavana, and he thinks of the taich and he does it with kavana, he's guaranteed parnasa bereva kol yom. He's going to have money, food, whatever he needs with space his entire life. And all of a sudden it was an amazing gift. He says, he tells the boys in the yeshiva, he says, just do it. You will see things happen in your own life. And this boy in the yeshiva was very moved. And he decided he's going to do it. And other boys ran to recess. It took him an extra 5 minutes, 7 minutes. And everybody busy ran, okay. And he did it. It took how long? An extra 5, 7 minutes. And he started benching with kavanah. He did this for many years until he got older, a little bit older. I don't know how many came out. And Rahman al-Islam, the Holocaust started. And it was in 1939. And he now is waiting online, very scary line. And Rahman al-Islam, the Nazi officer, was looking, and he was trying to make himself look like he's older. Maybe he was about 17, 18. And he's trying to make himself look older. And he's coming in and he doesn't know what's going to be. It was a very scary thing. And all of a sudden, right before he gets to the line, the Nazi's going to decide if he's going to die or not. And all of a sudden, the man in back of him says, tell him you're a cook or you're a chef and I'm your helper. And right away, he turns to the Nazi officer, says, I am a cook and this is my helper. And he says, oh yeah? Okay, let me see. And he sends one of the Nazi officers, brings him into the kitchen. Hey, there's a man, boy, there's somebody wants to see you. He can cook. They bring him a big pot. And mamish, he knows this is life and death. If he makes the first time and he makes the food, he knows how to make a little bit. And together with the other man, they ended up making a good meal. And the Nazi's like, oh, look at this, Jew knows out. And he ended up staying there for a few days, a few weeks. And he couldn't believe it. He said he knew 100% sure. It was only because he benched with kavanah. And whenever he could, he would eat bread and bench with kavanah. And if he knew he's not going to be able to have the kavanah because of the pressure, he did not eat the bread. And it was going through weeks, I don't know, a few, maybe months. And he knew 100%. They gave him like a little tiny room on the side. And that was his job. One day, a Nazi officer, Yimach Shemam, comes in. And he said, what? You're in here? Look at the way you're not even skinny. Look, that's not what it's supposed to be. Get out of the kitchen. And he starts walking him out. And he goes, uh-oh, you could kill him. Who knows what? And right away he says, you want to go back to the kitchen? He says, you got to do something. Let's see what you can do. And he gives him like a hammer. And he says, if you know how to make a hole for a bomb, like a place where you could hide from the bombs, 2 by 4 meters, a big hole, then you can go back to the kitchen. And if not, then he starts like laugh and he leaves him. And he's going to come back in a few hours and he starts hitting the ground and he realizes this wicked Nazi was trying to make fun of him because it's impossible. He starts hitting the ground, nothing, a little dirt. It'll take him weeks to do this, not a few hours. And he realizes he's in trouble. And he turns to Kadosh Baruch Hu. He says, Hashem, please help me. He says, and then he realizes you could say whatever you want in davening. He says, Hashem, please, He says, you promised, you said that anybody who benches with kavana, you're going to help him, beparnasa, bereva, kol yamav. He says, this is kol yamav. I'm going to die now, whatever. He was like 17, 18. He says, I'm going to die like this. He says, and all of a sudden, he's like, with a powerful tefillah. Kol yamav means a whole life. And he finishes his davening, and he continues trying to hit the ground. And meanwhile, a Nazi, whatever's a car, a truck, or whatever, comes by. And they start laughing at the Jew. And he says, you're a Jew. And they start cursing him, and they throwing him vegetables and all kinds of carrots and tomato. And he sees it, and they leave. And it's like, wow, why are they throwing vegetables at me? Like, this is a time of war. This is like diamonds. It's like food. And he's like, it was strange. They should throw rocks. But he knew that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has plans. And a little while later, there was another like a car, or whatever it was. It was a Jeep, and comes by with Nazis were driving it, but there were Polish people there inside. They were part of they were prisoners of the war. And they come in, and the Nazi says, get out. And these guys walk out, and they're starving, and they see all these vegetables there. And they all turn to this Jewish guy. He says, a Jewish man, mister. He says, can we have some vegetables? They didn't know why. What was he doing there? He says, and then right away, this boy thinks this, and he says, I know. He has an idea. He has a Baruch Hashem, he has a Gemara head. He was a Torah-dik person, and he says, if you dig for me 2 by 4 meters, perfect hole right now, I'll give you the vegetables. And these guys, 5, 6 guys, they had some kind of little tool things. And they went and they started making the hole. And for the next 2 hours, they made a perfect hole. And right away he said, okay, take it. And they went crazy. They went to take it. They were starving. And a little while later, the Nazi officer said, okay, everybody back in the Jeep or in the car. And they leave. And meanwhile, now he sees a perfect hole, a miracle, a massive miracle within 2 hours. And he knows the Eibishter made a massive miracle. And meanwhile, he's getting the little hammer and he's hitting the ground. And meanwhile, the Nazi officer comes back and he's about to who knows what. And he sees the Jew holding the little hammer and a massive hole. He says, what? You did this? I don't believe it. He says, oh, it's your Hashem, your creator, it's God. And he says, get out. And he got he says, I know what he made a miracle for you. Go, get back in. And he goes back to the kitchen. And he stays there for the next few years. I don't know how long it was, until the liberation when they got out. And he said he couldn't believe it. He went through all the years of the war there. And he was not in the concentration camp. He ate whatever he needed to eat his entire war years, which was a massive miracle. And he said he knew exactly why. It's because he benched with kavana. The Eibishter gave him bracha from A to Z. He had food, whatever he wanted, and then he moved to Eretz Yisrael. And he continued doing it for many, many, many years. Until this story in the beginning, I said over that he was one day benching in a sukkah, and he was an older man already, and people loved the way he benched. I used to hear from the other sukkah, oh, let's listen to his benching. And they asked him this, and he told them this amazing story. And he says, I've been benching for many, long time now. But this story when he was many years before. I don't know if he was 60, 70 years old, maybe 70. I don't know how old he was at that time already. And he says, you don't realize a person has tremendous bracha. A person tries little by little. You go slowly. If you can't bench the whole, you do first bracha. But try to think Hashem's name. Hashem's name is the master of the world. And with this story, maybe a machazik, anybody around who hears it, and we'll bench, and we'll try to look an English one and go to the stores. Or any brachas, it's from Alamichya, take an English one. Burn the Fashas, look at an English one. And Be'ez Hashem, maybe one day, we're going to be, you're able to see in yourself, then feel it, how much closeness you have to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because once you say Baruch Atah Hashem, you're talking directly to Hashem, no barriers. When you get to the Shemona Esrei, the first bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu v'Elokei, we say to all Hashem, HaGadol, HaGibor, He's big, great, HaGibor, v'Hanoire, fearful, Gomel Chasodim Toiv, He does good kindness. People could spend 2-3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes on those 3 words, because Hashem does chesed, endless. And there's one I heard from, I forgot who said this over, that a person should thank Hashem for, or Rabbi Asher, he said one, Maidim. Think every time you say Maidim, think of a new thing to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I remember one person told me, Simcha Bonim Cohen, he heard it from him, who said over a person should thank Hashem 100 things a day. And he says, and somebody told me he heard this from Simcha Bonim Cohen, it changed his life. Because then he realized all the other things that go wrong in life, okay, at least I have 100 things I could thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We should all be zeicha for all good things, as Hashem, all the time.